Hello, hi, and welcome to this episode of the Mandy Meyer Podcast. As per usual, this is South Africa's #1 health and fitness and fat loss podcast, she says, with a massive smile on her face because she knows she's talking nonsense because she doesn't have the stats. Welcome back to another episode. Today, I'm going to be chatting about I say it so politely, chatting about. What I'm going to be doing is throwing some truth bombs your way, some harsh realities your way when it does come to your health and fat loss, and more so your fat loss and your food choices and certain things. And I do think once you embark on, or you start embarking on your health and fat loss expedition, there are certain expectations that you do have to set for yourself. There's certain things that you have to come to realization with, because like I always say, it's not easy. It is going to be difficult. There's going to be ups, there's going to be downs. And I know, once you set your expectations accordingly, and once you realize that things aren't always going to be as easy as what a lot of people online make it out to be, and things aren't always going to be smooth sailing, and there are going to be times where you're going to have to make compromises if you do want to continue seeing progress, especially with that area where I say that fat loss area. Obviously, if we look at health progress, there's so many areas that we can look at, but that's not today's topic of conversation. Today's topic of conversation is 5 harsh realities that you have to accept as you move forward on your fat loss expedition. And I know this is possibly where a lot of you are just gonna exit this podcast, because a lot of people aren't ready to hear the truth, or you aren't ready to accept the truth that it's not magically just gonna happen. You need to put the work in for progress to happen, okay? So I'm gonna touch on those 5 harsh realities right now. Don't shoot the messenger. That's the saying that they say. And one thing I do want you to remember, that every single episode that I chat about, or where I give you tips, advice, and hacks and strategies, and especially an episode like today's episode where I'm going to give you the harsh realities of this expedition, I want you to know that number one, yes, it comes from a place of love, and sometimes you do need someone to give you tough love, but it also comes from a place and a person who has been through this thing called fat loss, a person who has gone through the struggles, and a person that also knows what needs to be done. And obviously that person is myself, having lost 40 kilograms and successfully managing to maintain that loss as well. Let's get into these 5 harsh realities. Number 1, you are going to have to say no to certain things, okay? Whether that's certain foods, whether that's certain, I want to say, parties out, whether that's certain, whatever it is, sometimes you are going to have to say no. I know there's this message online where it's like, say yes to everything, it's 100% fine. But unfortunately, the fact of the matter remains that you're not always going to be able to say yes to absolutely everything. There are going to be times where you're going to have to make the smarter calorie choices. There are going to be times, if you know that going out to a party is too tempting and it might end up in a raucous night out that might not align with your goals, maybe, just maybe, you're going to have to say no to that. And I have this thing is, sometimes, not all the times, right? So you really need to start accepting the fact that there are going to be times that you are going to have to say no to certain things, and you are going to have to practice self-control. And let's say, for example, you do go to that party and it does turn out to be raucous. Maybe, just maybe, you can say no to certain things at that party, right? So again, this is not me saying what you have to do, but if you want to see progress, there are going to be times where you're going to have to decline certain things, especially if you know at the bottom of your heart, like you know, you have that gut feeling, this does not align with my goals. You are allowed to say no to it. Harsh reality number 2. You have to be very intentional about your actions and your decisions. planning and prepping is fundamental. A lot of people think that they can just wing it. Winging it is probably going to take you straight back to where you started it, if I'm very honest, right? So you have to be very intentional about your actions, about your decisions, about your food choices. And I'm going to tell you now, just being intentional about certain things really makes you feel so much more in control. For example, just random example, if I know I have a higher calorie day and usually I end my day off with, say, a nice cup of hot chocolate, I need to now be intentional and say, you know what, my calories were a little bit higher today. So instead of having that cup of hot chocolate before I go to bed, let me rather look at substituting it with something like a cup of tea, which is maybe lower in calories. And that's what I mean by intentional, is don't come here and hana about things and, oh, maybe, and leave it up to chance. Again, you see, it comes down to planning. So be intentional about your food choices. If you have prepped your lunch for work and Sally comes in with a pizza, that pizza was not your intention in the first place. Your intention in the first place was your prepped lunch that you have in your Tupperware with you at work. That was your intention. So be intentional about the choices that you are making. That is something that you really have to start doing, and you have to start planning so that you know what the intentions are. The same goes for your steps, for example. Let's use step goals. So you wake up in the morning and you know it's going to be a total shit show of a day, but you've set your goals, your step goals at 12,000 steps per day, even though you know you've got meetings from 6 a.m. in the morning until 6 p.m. or 8 p.m. at night. Deep down inside, you know you're not going to be able to hit 12,000 steps. So why are you setting your step goal at 12,000 steps? Something like that is what I mean about being intentional as well. You say, okay, you know what? Today is just not a day to hit 12,000 steps. You have a legit reason why you're not going to be hitting those 12,000 steps. So be intentional about your steps for that day. So you're going to lower your step targets, maybe to 8,000 per day. But because it was a choice that you have made, it was an intention of yours, you're going to hit those 8,000 steps per day. You're not going to feel guilty because you didn't hit the 12,000 steps per day. And that's also what I mean by intentional. Okay, now number 3, you are going to have to put your needs over your wants. And what I mean by that is a lot of the times you're going to want to have a chocolate. You're going to want to have an ice cream. You're going to want to have that steak, chips, and 5 beers. But oftentimes that might not align with your goals. So you're going to be like, you know what? Do I really need to have this right now? Or is it just a want? Okay, so you're going to have to start figuring out what your needs are, what your wants are. Now, I'm not saying don't ever include your wants. Of course, you're going to want to include your wants, and you are going to do that. Okay, but every day, if you wanting to have a chocolate, you wanting to have a pie, you wanting to have a beer, you wanting to have this, and it doesn't align with your calorie goals, you're really going to have to start prioritizing your needs. And those things, your needs are things such as things that align with your goals. What do you need to do to see progress or to create progress? And more often than not, you need to focus on those needs over focusing on those wants. Again, like I said, you can add those wants to the plan, but there has to be a certain level of moderation and there has to be a certain level of control and balance as well. Because if we're going to always eat what we want, when we want, let's say it is highly palatable foods, for example, you're going to struggle to see progress. And when someone struggles to see progress, that frustration just builds up inside. It builds up inside. And that's often where people give up. And that's why I say we need to start looking. You need to start looking at what your needs are. Do I really need to have this right now? How is this going to improve my lifestyle right now? Those are the questions that you need to ask yourself. Say, yes, I want to have a burger and chips right now, but I would rather have the meals that are prepped because they align with my goals. And as I'm speaking about that, that sort of goes hand in hand with point number 1, where sometimes you're just going to have to say no to things. You're going to have to say yes to going for that walk instead of saying yes to lying on the couch and watching Netflix, you know. So you're going to have to say, Netflix, not right now. Sorry, buddy. I got other more important things to do, and that's going for a walk. Yes, walk, no Netflix. Now, again, if you listen to this, you probably think, she's telling us never to watch Netflix. No, I'm not. If you haven't hit your step goals for the day, and it is still daylight, and it's safe to go outside and get a walk, and you've got the option between Netflix and walking for 10 minutes, go for that 10-minute walk. And that actually brings me to point number 4. You're going to have to be realistic with yourself. You're going to have to be honest with yourself. You're going to have to be open with yourself about the difference between a legitimate reason as to why things are not getting done, or as to whether it might be an excuse. Because there's a difference between a reason as to why you are not hitting step targets. There's a difference between a reason as to why you potentially went over calories. And then there's an excuse as to why you didn't hit step targets, maybe, for example. But only you would know the difference between, I want to say, an excuse or a reason. I like to say it's a legit excuse or a non-legit excuse. So again, for example, your steps. Like if you come to me and you say to me, oh, Mandy, I didn't hit step goals. And I say, okay, why? I say, there was this interesting new series on Netflix and I decided to watch that instead because, I just didn't want to hit my step targets because Netflix was more interesting. Then I'll be like, maybe we need to relook that. Whereas if you come to me and you say to me, oh, I was in meetings the entire day. My boss kept me working late. Then I got home and my kid was sick. She wasn't feeling well. He wasn't feeling well. Then I'll be like, that is a legit reason as to why you couldn't hit your step targets yesterday. And there's a very big difference between, I want to say, like I said, a reason and an excuse. Okay, so you're going to need to ask yourself that difficult question, and you're going to need to ask yourself, is it excuses that are being made as to why you don't want to do the thing? Or do you really want to do the thing, but you just can't do it because of X, Y, or Z? And number 5 is a big one, okay? Number 5 is a harsh reality that not a lot of people want to face. Not a lot of people want to sort of accept it, but you're going to have to change. No matter what you're doing, change is going to have to take place, because you would not be in the position where you are now wanting to change if what you were doing was working. Because if what you were doing was working, like I said, then you wouldn't need to change what you were doing. So you have to be willing to change. A lot of the times people come to me and say, oh, but Mandy, I've never eaten breakfast in my life. I'm like, okay, is that working for you? Well, I don't actually know. Okay, be prepared to change. Be prepared to have 3 meals per day, to actually look if that does work, to test to see if it does work, okay? Another area of change, what people are really scared of is, I want to say, social environments or any environments. If you know that your social environment doesn't align with your current goals, there might need to be a little bit of a change that does take place. Even if you withdraw for a little bit. Now, please, before anyone shuts themselves, this is not me saying don't cut out all social events. I'm talking from my own experience here. My social setting was not aligning with my goals. It was so many temptations that I was surrounded by. And I'm like, if I want this to work, if I want to be successful with my health and fat loss expedition, I need to find like-minded people to surround myself with. I am the only one that can make that change. And that's what I did. I signed up for Adventure Bootcamp for Women, and I went once or twice every week. And it was amazing at what a shift started taking place, because now I'm surrounded by people with the same sort of values and the same kind of goals and the same struggles. And together we fought the battle. Okay, so again, change is more than just change the way that you are doing it. You got to change your environments, maybe the foods that you are eating, maybe the drinks that you are drinking, maybe your Netflix hours, maybe your chill time. Things like that are going to need to change. You're really going to have to get out of your comfort zone and start making changes. Now, again, only you will know what areas need working on. Only you will know. You will definitely know deep down inside, in your heart, you will know what the thing is that is holding you back. And I'll say that again because I knew what was holding me back. It was the people that I was surrounded by. It was, and it's not necessarily their fault. I want to say that. It's just I had no self-control. So as soon as there was a temptation, I just rubber arm Mandy. You can call me that from now onwards. What's your name? Mandy, rubber arm Meyer, right? So again, I'm not blaming those people at all because it was me. I lacked control because there were so many temptations in that certain environment. So I knew that I had to change environments. That doesn't mean I totally scrapped absolutely everything, but I totally put a shift towards hanging out with more like-minded people at that adventure boot camp for women. Then at a later stage, started doing the park run, started meeting people, not necessarily becoming friends with them, but you're just surrounded by a community of people that are wanting to do the same thing, wanting to improve their lifestyles, wanting to improve their health. And it's crazy how that rubs off on you, right? Now, I don't know how point number 5 of change went to, find like-minded people, but it really, really is something to take into consideration. And I personally know that it isn't easy because I'm exceptionally socially awkward and I do struggle with high levels of anxiety when it comes to social settings. So for me, it was a massive thing to get out of that comfort zone and go and join something like Adventure Boot Camp for Women because it was scary. I was sweating bullets. It was horrendous. But like I said, I'm so glad that I did it because it just opened up a whole different mindset for myself and it actually started exciting me to go and exercise. And the more I started, getting excited to go and exercise and chill with my buddy Mercy. I met her through Adventure Boot Camp for Women, go chill with her. And, then it's like, then we started hanging out together on weekends and it wasn't like raucous weekends. Then we started again, park running together. And, then we joined a CrossFit gym together. And through running, I met some other people and it just all of a sudden became a whole new environment for myself. And I really think that still does play a massive role in my success because I know the saying is so cliche, but they always say you are the people that you surround yourself with, right? So if that's one area that the most difficult for me was to change that area, but it's probably the area that, really, really helped me as well. So just keep in mind that change, no matter what change it is, whether it's change to your routine, change to your food, change to your environment, change to your social circles. Again, I'm not saying that any of this has to be done. I'm just giving you some tips and advice. Change is required, and that is the most important thing to remember. This progress isn't going to take place, success isn't going to happen if you aren't willing to change. And honestly, when I chat about all of these things, I know that a lot of it is easier said than done. I know that for a fact. I mean, the beauty of it was that I've actually been through all of this. So I do say that it does come from a place of love when I do dish out tough love like this. But I also want you to know that, I know that it's not that easy. I know that it is difficult. But one thing I don't want you to stop doing is to stop trying. I don't want you to stop trying. I don't want you to give up. I want you to continue working on that change. I want you to continue working on saying no to things that you don't necessarily want in that moment in time. I want you to continue working on your progress because I fucking know just how capable every single one of you are of doing it. On that note, I'm going to love and leave you like I usually do. Keep smiling, keep laughing, and keep being kind to one another. Much love, your friend who really does believe in every single one of you, Mandy.